My goodness, if North Carolina didn't get a hurricane every 2 years to flush all the manure lagoons in the confinement hog houses, the whole state would be covered up with hog manure right now. In livestock, perhaps it's important to realize that the biggest differences in quality and in just production techniques comes in the animals that currently are produced with no pasture whatsoever, what we call no salad bar at all. And so when we look at the overarching idea of pastured pigs, it gives us a product and a production protocol that is farther differentiated from the conventional industrial concentrated animal feeding operation than, for example, cows, which spend most of their time, even in conventional circles, out on pasture. So it's the pigs, it's the poultry that never sees outdoors, that never sees the sunshine. We want to start with the pigs because everybody loves bacon, and let's have good bacon, and let's have bacon that actually helps the ecology and the nest of where those pigs are raised. So why do we raise pastured pigs? Why put pigs on pasture? A lot of people come to this with some misconceptions. They think, oh, I'm going to put them on pasture so I don't have to buy any feed, or I'm going to put them on so they'll just take care of themselves out there and I won't have to fool with them. That's going to save feed and labor. Both of those are incorrect. The reason it doesn't save feed is because they exercise so much, so they actually run off many of the calories that they ingest from the feed. So your feed to meat ratio, your conversion ratio, is going to be about the same as it is in a confinement situation. They will supplement, of course, with all the grass, but that doesn't really put weight on the pig. You're not going to save labor because the pigs are going to be farther away. They're going to be, away from the house, away from where you are, so you have running time in checking on them. Why we want to pasture pigs is that it does reduce capital investment. You don't have to build a house. You don't have to pour concrete. You can get into pastured pigs with very, very simple infrastructure. You can bootstrap your way in. That's a wonderful thing. So getting in becomes easier. And part of our whole series here is making it easy for a young person to enter the vocation of farming. Next thing it does, of course, is it improves soil and vegetation. You can go into a brambly, honeysuckle, blackberry infested place, poor ground, poor place, and over time you can move that to a very high state of fertility and increased biomass vegetation capturing solar energy to do decomposition and increase organic matter. So there's a tremendous improvement of soil and vegetation potential. It produces pork with a more dense and balanced nutrition. So, one of the most interesting studies we've done with many of our chefs is do displacement studies where you take 10 pounds of our pork, 10 pounds of regular industry pork, and ours actually displaces significantly less water, which means it weighs more per cubic inch. So it's a denser and it also actually has a more balanced nutritional ratio. It's aromatically and aesthetically sensually romantic. When we show these pastures or bring pigs out to them, guess what? There's no smell, there's no flies, there's no odor, and we think that good farming has to be aesthetically and aromatically, sensually romantic. So it offers an easy entry to new farmers. We desperately need on-ramps into farming today. The average American farmer is now 60 years old. The problem is that when the hurdles and the impediments to entry impede young people from getting in, old people can't get out. So the beauty of pastured pigs is that we can actually start. We can start with a few. We can start small. We can start with very cheap infrastructure, and we can get in, which allows that level of entry for a young farmer. That's a wonderful thing. Or if you're an existing farmer and you want to add this as an enterprise, you're not looking at thousands and thousands of dollars of additional infrastructure development and capital cost. in order to add this second enterprise, to take advantage of maybe some marginal acreages, your woodland, some edges, those kinds of things. You can add that fairly cheaply. Another reason for pastured pigs is that it decentralizes production and manure. As you know, right now, industrial conventional pig production is very centralized in massive houses, which creates massive manure loads. When the industry, takes a camera picture of a confinement pig house and says, look at all the production we're getting out of this small footprint, they don't show, the acres of grain going in and the acres of handling manure going out. And, my goodness, if North Carolina didn't get a hurricane every 2 years to flush all the manure lagoons in the confinement hog houses, the whole state would be covered up with hog manure right now. So, so being able to take all this out into more expansive land, and be assured that pasturing pigs takes land. As we go through our square footage requirement, our paddock requirement, you're going to see that the whole thing here is not confinement. It's not outdoor confinement. It does take a lot of acreage, and so it is lucrative per acreage, even at the low densities that I'm going to describe. But it does require a fair amount of land. In other words, if you've got just 1 acre or 2 acres, yes, you can absolutely do pastured pigs, but you're not going to do very many of them. Otherwise, you're going to have a moonscape, and we're going to be back into hog cholera and all the things that the reason we don't want to, that the industry is scared to death of people like us that have pigs outside. We don't want that to happen. We want to lead by example. But when you see the pastured pig, all of it's there. The place to, you don't have to spread the manure. You don't need all of that infrastructure and equipment material to spread everything, because it's decentralized. So you're actually moving those pigs out across the landscape rather than confining them and centralizing them in one little spot where you have a toxicity pathogen problem within the system, which leads us to the next reason to do pastured pigs, is that it reduces pathogens and sickness. Again, as long as they're moved onto fresh ground. And so if I say movement one time, I'm going to say movement 100 times during this series, because it is the movement, it is the constant movement that not only gets the pigs onto fresh vegetation, fresh forage, the movement is also what gets them away from yesterday's excrement. So we're not putting them on a slatted floor with a slurry manure pit underneath, like the confinement houses. We don't want them to be in their toilet, for days after day after day. And so we want to keep moving them, and that movement actually gets them moved away from hosting pathogens, sickness problems from before. So our whole rest periods between stays, so they're only going to be on a given spot for a few days, and then there's going to be a long rest period, 50, 60, 75 days. There's going to be this long rest period, and that rest period is when the pathogens and all the toxicity, when it all dissipates and the ecological womb metabolizes all of that into itself, into that nest again, to keep things clean and hygienic and sanitary for the next time when the pigs come through. That recuperation time, that rest time, is absolutely critical for making sure that those pigs stay healthy and happy. Of course, the green material does worlds to make sure that the pigs stay healthy and happy. Just the regular mineral, antibiotic, carotene load in what we call the salad bar, which again is why you want to move them so they're on fresh, clean ground routinely. And finally, it makes more succulent, juicy pork due to exercise. Here's the deal. Muscle tissue does not turn moist without exercise. My father-in-law used to raise pigs. Of course, almost everybody around here, had a few pigs back, 80 years ago. And his pig house, And yes, he had one of those awful moonscaped, unrotated yards there. But the pigs jumped up. He had a 24-inch threshold. The pigs had to jump up in to get into the pig house, and where they could eat and lounge and drink. And I asked him, I said, Daddy, why do you have that 24-inch threshold there? He said, well, that makes them jump. That exercises their hams, and their hams become more moist with the exercised muscles, so that it become more like the shoulders instead of just, the dry ham. So the rule of thumb on meats is that if a meat is exercised, it's more succulent but less tender, and if it's unexercised, it's dry but more tender. So think about a chicken. The thigh of a chicken is more succulent, but it's tougher, takes longer to cook. A breast is drier, but it's more tender, but doesn't get any exercise. The best reasons to have pigs on pasture is simply the fresh air, exercise, and sunshine that they get outside to actually stimulate what we call gamboling in the pasture, which creates a more moist, succulent product, more nutritionally balanced. It's a much better eating experience, and of course, the pigs enjoy it more than anything. And so it actually allows the pigs to be in a habitat that honors the pigs, that respects the pigs. They can express their greatest pigness in an outdoor setting. That's their natural habitat. And of course, in being happy, most expressive pigs of pigness, they actually provide vitality and the best nutrition and eating experience for us. So for all those reasons, we want to get these pigs out on pasture within the strategies that we're going to discuss, and enjoy an entry-level place to get into farming and a way to have healthy, happy animals in the process.